Today, the word narcissist gets thrown around everywhere. We're warned how to spot them, how to guard against them, how to escape them. They're seen as arrogant, entitled, even dangerous. But almost no one asks the real question. How does someone even become a narcissist in the first place? The real answer isn't what you've been told, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Before we can understand how narcissists are created, we have to start with one simple truth. Narcissism isn't real confidence. It isn't pride or self-love. It's a mask that hides fragile, unstable self-esteem underneath. And here's something most people miss. Every human being has some narcissistic traits. We all want to be admired and to feel important. That's normal. But a true narcissist depends on it. They don't develop a solid sense of who they are. They learn to rely on how others see them to feel like they matter. Without admiration, without validation, their entire identity starts to collapse. No child is born desperate for admiration. That desperation is taught. Parents don't set out to create narcissists, but when love feels conditional, even good intentions can have lasting scars. Every child is born with one basic need: to be loved, not for their grades or their trophies or how they make their parents look, but simply for who they are. But for many children, that's not the love they receive. Instead, love feels conditional. It's given when they succeed and withheld when they fall short. They hear things like, "You're such a good boy when you win. Why can't you be more like your brother? You're making us so proud. Everyone's talking about how amazing you are." Or they feel it in the small moments. The disappointed sigh when they bring home a B instead of an A. The cold silence when they cry or show anger. The sudden warmth that appears only when they achieve something. And slowly the message sinks in. Love is something I have to earn. Who I really am isn't enough. They abandon who they are to become who they must be. They learn that being authentic leads to rejection, and that to feel loved, they have to become someone else. They create a mask, one shaped by two powerful patterns they experience early on. Sometimes these patterns come from two different parents, one lifting them too high, the other tearing them down. Sometimes they come from the same parent, praising one moment, withdrawing love the next. Either way, the result is the same. The child learns that being real isn't safe, and that acceptance depends on being whatever others expect them to be. It's not just praise or criticism that fractures their sense of self. It's the constant swing between both. The emotional instability that teaches them love is unpredictable, and that survival depends on who they pretend to be. The first pattern is overvaluation. It happens when parents flood the child with constant praise, not tied to effort, character, or real achievement, but simply for existing or impressing. They hear things like, "You're the smartest kid in the world. You're destined for greatness. You're better than everyone else." On the surface, it sounds like love, but underneath, it teaches the child that being exceptional isn't just admired, it's required. But no child can be exceptional all the time. And when they inevitably fall short, the second pattern appears: devaluation. Now, instead of praise, they hear things like, "Why can't you get it right? You're such a disappointment. Maybe if you tried harder, we could be proud of you." In one moment, they're lifted up, exaggerated, idealized. In the next, they're torn down, criticized, abandoned. And so the child learns that love is unstable, something that can be given when they perform and taken away when they fall short. In that world, being real doesn't bring love, it brings rejection. So the child adapts. They build a version of themselves they believe will be accepted, a self that's admired, untouchable, invulnerable, even if it means hiding who they really are. Over time, the real self doesn't just hide, it fractures. But the tragedy doesn't stop there. Caught between the need to impress and the fear of rejection, the child faces an impossible reality: be perfect or be unloved. No matter what they do, The real self remains unacceptable. They learn to become what's expected and to bury what's real. They live in a world where love is always at risk, and survival depends on never letting the mask slip. Underneath the mask, the narcissist doesn't feel confident. They feel insecure, ashamed, and afraid of being seen for who they really are. The mask is how they hide that fear, but hiding it doesn't fix the problem. Deep down, they still feel they aren't good enough. They still believe that if people saw the real them, they would be rejected. That's why praise and admiration matter so much. It's not just about feeling important, it's about feeling safe enough to be accepted. This is also why they're constantly trying to direct attention back to themselves. They brag, exaggerate, and redirect conversations, not because they feel superior, but because without attention, they feel invisible. From the outside, it looks like arrogance. It looks like entitlement. But underneath, it's insecurity, the fear that if they ever stop performing, they'll be seen, judged, and rejected all over again. Validation gives them a temporary sense of worth. For a moment, the fear and shame gets pushed down. For a moment, they can believe they're enough. But it never lasts. The approval fades and the old fear returns. The emptiness creeps back in. So they look for more praise, more admiration, and more attention. The more they chase it, the more trapped they become. They can't slow down because stopping means facing the truth they are desperate to avoid, that deep down they still feel worthless. By adolescence, the mask is no longer just a way to cope. It's becoming who they are. The survival strategies they built in childhood start to harden into fixed patterns. Traits like bragging, dismissing feedback, emotional withdrawal, and constantly needing attention become part of their everyday behavior. At this stage, they aren't just wearing the mask. They believe it's who they have to be. Admitting weakness, showing vulnerability, or facing their insecurities feels like opening themselves up to rejection and judgment. They double down on the false self because it's the only version of them that feels safe enough to be accepted. As they move into adulthood, these patterns don't fade. They intensify. The mask becomes permanent. From the outside, the adult narcissist may seem confident, charismatic, or driven. But inside, the same fear and insecurity still lives under the surface, just buried deeper. They constantly steer conversations back to themselves. They name drop. They post online for praise. They exaggerate achievements and fish for compliments, not to feel superior, but to keep self-doubt from surfacing. Criticism, even when it's mild or well-meaning, often leads to overreactions, anger, shutdown, blame shifting. To them, feedback doesn't feel like correction. It feels like exposure. In relationships, they come on strong, love bombing, promising the world. But when the admiration fades or the other person sees through the act, they withdraw, lash out, or cut off completely. They struggle to keep long-term friendships, stay in jobs, or maintain stable partnerships. The pattern repeats: strong start, emotional crash. Blame someone else, move on. On the surface, it looks like self-confidence. Underneath, it's fragile self-worth, desperately trying to hold itself together. The final product isn't someone full of themselves, it just looks that way. It's someone who spent so long trying to be what others wanted, they've lost touch with who they really are. Most parents don't set out to raise a narcissist. They tell their kids how smart they are, how talented they are. They step in to protect them, fight for them, make sure they feel important. They think they're building self-confidence. But when the praise only shows up when a child performs, when the hugs come after the win, not the loss, the child doesn't feel secure. They feel like they have to earn love by being impressive. That pressure doesn't just come from parents, it's everywhere. In school, where kids are rewarded for results, not effort. On social media, where attention goes to the loudest, boldest, most polished image. In everyday life, where people are taught to sell themselves just to be noticed. We notice kids when they succeed, but we overlook them when they're struggling. We flood them with praise, but rarely show them how to handle failure. We focus on how they look to others, but don't teach them how to live with themselves. Narcissism doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's shaped by the systems around it, often with good intentions, but the wrong focus. In a world obsessed with how things look and how much attention you can get, narcissists aren't multiplying by accident. They're multiplying because that's exactly what we reward. If you found this video insightful, you might like another one on a similar topic. Click on the thumbnail to watch or keep exploring. Also, please comment, like, and subscribe to the channel.